terms of our Gemini employee lifecycle and journey of your employee through your organisation, we have a complete lifecycle framework which takes you from onboarding, recruiting, attracting your employee through to offboarding. Through Gemini, your employees will have an engaged HR systems experience. And why this is possible, it's because we do a unique user experience process and user-led design adoption to coming on to the Gemini framework. Wellbeing is one of those words we're hearing a lot about these days. It goes beyond simply healthy or sick, and companies are now measuring that state of happiness and engagement. And many care for the aspirational development with the environment that they work. Yes, we can still measure those sick days and that development that needs to occur through an employee through the life cycle of their journey with you. The first steps in measuring well-being, though, in terms of the greater aspect, is to capture that state of happiness or not in your organisation and the engagement that your employees have, their development, their growth, their desires, the value they can add to your organisation, and their business as usual day-to-day health and well-being, whether that is those incidents or the sick leave or the hours that they work. We keep in mind here that a happy workforce is a productive workforce. And today, I'll be taking you on what I hope is a more inspirational journey of well-being. We'll also be looking at remuneration. The traditional approach with self-service portals on remuneration, if you're fortunate enough to have a software system that has that capability, is usually a spreadsheet type environment, emails, pieces of paper with market information matching to performance. So the question then is, how can we make better decisions during the salary review process? How can we streamline it for you with the employee at the centre of that universe and looking after them, and the HR objective being the indicators of their performance and their REM journey at your fingertips? What I'd like to do is give you an insight into the Gemini framework, and then we'll talk a little bit more specifically around that wellbeing and REM journey. Gemini has an approach that is quite unique. So from an HR perspective, we're looking at our employees as an employee-centric view. I'm in as Brandy, who is a manager. So as a manager through Gemini, I have a number of things I can do. I can, as an HR administrator, look at some system information. As an HR manager, see items about my people and my business and my organisation. And as a payroll manager, I have some pay components. Gemini is touchscreen orientated, so I don't have to rely on a mouse. You won't be able to see that in this presentation. Looking at wellbeing from an employee perspective, one of the things I might look at in terms of an employee is advising my organisation about my strengths, my style of working, how I like to be considered in the organisation, or from a life cycle perspective and evolving through my journey with the organisation, letting the organisation know what my aspirations are. So what career choices I've made, how can the organisation get to know me better, what skills I can contribute to the organisation, and then potentially the expectations of how I'll go on that journey through the organisation. Letting the organisation know how I can contribute not only to their performance and to their success and to their values could be actually really important to an employee and their journey with you. Also, from a wellbeing perspective, that reflective view in terms of my performance in the organisation. With Gemini at my fingertips, I can see not only my current year of performance and what I would need to obtain through this performance category, but also how I've actually evolved over the previous years in my life cycle with the organisation, how I've developed, how I've grown, and how I still want to develop and grow, and how I've performed. From a manager's perspective, looking at that, I would then be able to go in and have a look at my employees in terms of their complete team performance and how my employees are performing with the organisation. And also seeing that skill set and that journey and how they've developed, either from an insight view or from a specific employee, and looking at their performance or aspirations and how they've actually seen their performance over this time. Adding value to that, imagine having a team board where, as a manager, you can actually see how happy your people are today or how busy they are, what type of development they have on the day, or what type of development they're actually wanting to pursue, as well as a pattern of a state of happiness. How does your organisation feel today? With an HR wellbeing insight, what is critical that needs attention and is coming up is going to be very visible to you. And the fact that I can see that I might have an employee that has a particular moment, I might be able to go and have a lovely conversation with them. This information through Gemini could be entered either by me coming into my Gemini and going, I'm pretty happy today, especially if it's a Friday, or we've all seen those happy or not boards. The thought of perhaps having this in an organisation and really judging how happy your people are is something that might be a little bit forward thinking. We're used to seeing these when it comes to service and how happy we are with the service in an organisation. This potentially could be an easy platform to capture that information, and as an executive, you can then see the state of the nation or the state of the organisation right now and how your employees are feeling. Of course, it's not just about being happy or not. One of the basics of employee wellbeing is taking that leave for rest and recreation. So having an environment where I can actually see what leave I've got coming up, my leave balances, and planning in leave so that I can take that well-needed break. From a manager's perspective, being able to see across the team when people are on leave and informatively ensuring that I don't have too many people away at the same time to put an unwarranted load on the other employees in the business, and also capturing the need to ensure we've got staff over those very busy times. Imagine, however, that our AI and the solution, when requesting a leave, might come through and say, you've been working really hard. How about taking some extended time? You've got this much balance. Take some more time off. There's a couple of things that happen here. It could be an aha moment for the employee, but also it helps with that leave liability. To have a look at the other insights that we can provide from a wellbeing perspective, as a manager, we might be able to see patterns of leave that are occurring. This one is parental. It could be any other sort of leave, of course. Or from a wellbeing and engagement perspective, we could even start that right back at the recruitment phase. So the concept of actually being able to feedback on how much you're enjoying the process and starting that engagement with our organisation with a potential employer right at the very beginning then provides that employee with the opportunity to see that we actually do care about the processes that are being engaged out with our employees. It's a nice, simple. A manager, when offboarding the other side of the recruitment process, might then be able to see through Gemini a recommendation of additional people required in the role. How does this reflect with wellbeing? Well, if there was a position in the business that was constantly working more than a 10-hour day, then Gemini can be your HR business partner advising that you might need to have a look at either the capacity of the role or additional people for the role, giving a sense check to that office and work-life balance that people strive to provide their, or organisations strive to provide their people. Wellbeing could also be a simple compliance issue, and this could be a necessary certificate, whether it be a forklift licence or something like a first aid certificate or handling of hazardous materials. So having that at your fingertips, the solution then provides you with that view that certain people need to be re-educated, retrained or recertificated, thus looking after your people in the best possible way. Oops, and I'm going backwards, apologies. My team and their performance and their feedback. Wellbeing can also be part of how well are they interacting across the teams? What is the feedback of my team members from other team members? How have I enjoyed working with other people across the business? So we talk about skilling, upskilling, or aspirations and performance. Peer and client feedback could be just as important. So being able to actually guide our employees through a journey of increasing performance, increasing development, and also recognising that they're doing a really good job. Having a wellbeing insight could be of interest for organisations and for employees. When you're bringing employees on, how beneficial would it be for employees to know who actually does belong as part of the netball team, who goes for a run at lunchtime, who enjoys cycling, or simply going out for a coffee and having a discussion around the day's activities. So we've talked a lot about mood input. However, interactions between our people does increase the well-being of our organisation and potentially the ability to enjoy working together even a little bit more. So this could be from an employee basis, being able to see across their peer group, or a manager being able to see across their environment in terms of engagement activities. Wellbeing has become more than just the working environment, the health and safety. It is also about how we interact between our team members and with our customers. The wellbeing overview for Shelley, the employee, in this instance, we can see how she's managing her aspirations, how she's managing her performance, her level of work enjoyment, her level of work-life balance. That could be taken in from a simple framework like a timesheet, or a wearable device that's actually showing how often she's in the area of the office and even what her sleep patterns are. So linking wearables with employee lifecycle technology is now a possible thing. The mood insight across the offices and the business insight, as well as some of the wellbeing alerts, can add value to looking after our employees. And of course, there are those basics. So bereavement leave, medical leave, and then our little Bruce down the bottom, who has a general state of happiness and is feeling pretty today because he has an issue in the workplace. In terms of ensuring that we're in a safe and good environment, from time to time we do need to let the organisation know that we've had a mishap. So being able to readily advise in terms of an incident, and then from an HR perspective, be able to potentially put recommendations in place for a return to work pattern, rehabilitation, or just sharing the fact that we've had an incident is also a really valuable part of an employee lifecycle solution. Here we see a return to work request for an employee and some issues around fatigue and some minor injuries. Hopefully those don't happen too often in the environment. From an insight perspective, giving visibility across the business, having a look at where those areas of incidents or hazards are, is also something that is important to ensure in our environment. Here we have a situation in Wellington where we have a hazard of an unfenced dock. We can hover over that incident and go into some more details. Potentially in our employee life cycle, we can also then send out some lovely messages to our employees. Smart mobility is the employee perk, know the risk and the reward. So some HR tips of the day, improving and information around our HR processes within the organisation and making them fairly transparent so that the employees do feel part of that HR process. From a remuneration perspective, certainly part of a general happiness with our employees. How do we manage our REM in a way that's meaningful to us as an organisation? From a position perspective, it's nice to be able to see not only the REM, but the bonus components and total REM of a position structure. To make informed decisions, we may also want to see that over a period of time, whether that be position or role-based or by employee. For reporting at HR and board level, this type of information is absolutely invaluable, and it helps us in terms of a go-to-market or a market expectation of salaries for our existing employees. When increasing a REM, we want to make that an easy process. It could be as simple as an increase because someone has done a really good role, or a promotion, and we're entering some effective dates for that to take effect, with associated information around what that will do for a REM structure for payroll and management to be aware. From a holistic view across the organisation, where we want to actually ensure that our people are being remunerated in the most positive way, we can have indicators that are not only just about the salary, but also potentially about performance or aspirations or feedback. In this example, we actually have a group of employees where we're measuring their market range of remuneration and also including in that a performance indicator. So very visibly, I have here my people that are below range, above range, and then some people that may need some assistance in terms of performing a little bit better in their role. The organisation has given a particular band of employees a budget to proceed with. So that budget across the business unit is made very, very visible for the managers of their team to ensure that they can apportion the REM increase in a fair way. In this example, through Gemini, we have the ability to actually create buckets of remuneration, and as we apportion the $100,000 budget we have for REM increases, we can see that amount decline as we apportion it out. So you can see I've got an add remuneration change here, and I could make that a $500 bucket or a $10,000 bucket and add employees into it, with the associated warmings and suggested increases for the employees. So in terms of the Gemini solution, I hope that you've actually found this little insight quite interesting around how we can engage, how we can look at wellness, how we can manage our remuneration across the organisation. A couple of questions in terms of our Gemini customers would be, how do you look to engage your people and truly understand their motivations and their desires? And what does wellness look for you? I've given some concepts, and there's certainly others. So what we would like to do is, if you have any interest in exploring this further, is feel free to contact us, because we would love to share some more about the Gemini journey and the Gemini story, how it could look for you and how it might be right for you.